Hi everyone. I'm going to discuss about the consumer behavior. Let's define some of the different concepts under this topic so that pagdating ng mga next slide, malalaman ninyo or itong mga concepts, madala-dala pa rin sila. For example, utility, it denotes satisfaction. So, pag sinabing satisfaction, take note that we're dealing of how we able as a consumer to consume goods and services. If we consume these goods and services, ano ang ma-feel mo? Are you satisfied or not? So most likely, 'di ba, pag mag-consume tayo ng mga goods and services, of course, you satisfy. Hindi naman puwede na nag-consume ka or bumili ka ng mga produkto na hindi ka na-satisfy. So, in this case, yung sinasabi pala natin na 'pag bumili tayo ng mga goods or services, nandoon na pala yung tinatawag natin na satisfaction or what we call utility. And also, it is a subjective pleasure that an individual can derive from consuming a good or service. I have a quote here. The consumer prefers the best bundle of goods that he can afford. Totoo naman, di ba, that tayo as a consumer, mas prefer natin na makamura tayo. Kapag mura kasi ang mga produkto or even services, we able to buy these things because we can afford to buy for those different or bundles of goods. Yung term dito na bundle, we're talking about different goods. Okay? So, also, the taste and preferences and the income are the factors that make an individual decide what different or bundles of goods to consume. So, nakaka-apekto yung taste and preferences natin kung bakit tayo nag-consume ng mga goods or even services. Bakit? For example, advertisement. Diba pag nanood tayo ng TV at may nag-endorse siya ng produkto. So tayo din na-influence based doon sa information na inalabas doon sa TV or even influence coming from our family, friends, peers. So yun yung mga reasons kung bakit we prefer or we like to buy or to consume goods or services. Income then is also one of the factors that we make to decide how do we able to buy because if we have income we can able to buy different goods and services. So the three, no, the things the two rather the things and preferences and income are those factors that we decide on how we able to buy or to purchase different goods or services. Yung sinasabi ba na satisfaction once na bibili tayo ng mga goods or services, can we measure it? Okay, yun yung tanong. There were attempts to quantify satisfaction in the past. They are using this what we call cardinal utility theory. And this theory uses cardinal ranking of preferences which attaches specific numbers to different levels of satisfaction. In short, pag ganon daw yung satisfaction level natin towards getting that particular good or particular service, you're going to represent any number. For example, I have here one orange and this is equivalent to 5 UTs. This is my case. So, depende na yan siya sa inyo on how you able to rank or specify any number. Yung util pala na sinasabi dito is the unit of measurement for our satisfaction. So ako sa tingin ko, pag I'm going to consume one orange, it is equivalent to 5 utils. Pero kapag bibili ako ng isang apple, it's equivalent to 10 UTs. So that is how I'm going to represent my satisfaction towards these two, the orange and the apple. Ang problema lang nitong ganitong pag-represent ng number, it's not really typical or usual na ginagamit ng mga consumers. 'Di ba kapag bibili tayo ng mga goods or services outside, ang iniisip lang natin is that, ay bibili tayo ng ganito kasi mura, ay bibili tayo nito kasi kailangan natin or pasok pa sa budget natin. At hindi mo na usually iniisip kung mag-represent ka ng yung satisfaction mo, it's either you like this product or not. So, gano'n. So, may alternative actually kung paano natin i-measure yung satisfaction. And this is what we call ordinal utility or its ordinal ranking of preferences. So, pag sinabing ordinal, we're talking about order. Di yung order na mag-order ka sa, diba, sa palengke or ganito, ganyan. So, we're talking about how do we able to rank it or to rank different goods and services based on our preferences. So, I have here example. A while ago, actually, it was presented pag isang apple, kanina it's 10 UTs. Ang isang orange is 5 UTs. So, ako, mas prefer ko ang apple kaysa sa orange. So, ang gagawin ko on how to apply this ordinal utility is one apple, that's my rank number 1 or my first priority. While itong orange is my second priority or my rank number 2. So, 'di ba kapag bibili tayo ng mga goods and services outside, so ito yung i-consider mo, 'di ba, sa isip natin, ano ba ang gusto natin dito? Ano ba ang pwede natin i-priority? Ito ba or ito ba? So kung gusto mo ito, so that's your first priority. Pag ito naman, second priority. Until such time that yung less preferred mo, most likely hindi mo talaga siya mabili. So that's how you're going to rank, no, your goods and services based on your satisfaction. We have also what we call total utility and marginal utility. When we say total utility, in short, TU, it's the total level of satisfaction derived from consuming a good or a service. So once we able to consume a good or a service, so titingnan mo yung totality or the accumulation. So for instance, kung bibili ka ng isang apple, sa tingin mo ang i-represent po na number dyan is 10 UTs. Yun yung sinabi ko a while ago. Pero kabibili ka pa ng isa to make it 2 apples. So, expected ka na more than 10 UTs ang i-represent mo dyan. So, maybe it's 15, ba? Kung bibili ka naman another one to make it 3, so magiging 18 niya or 18 units na yan siya. So, ganon. That is how you're able to understand the total utility. How about the marginal utility or MU? It is the additional satisfaction that we derive from the consuming an additional unit of a good or a service. So kanina, 'di ba, may additional 1 unit ako. Okay? For example, a while ago, I said kapag bibili ako ng isa, that's additional unit. Kapag bibili ako ng isa, nagdagdagan yung aking sinasabi na number of utils. So, yung sa apple, I represent one apple as 10 utils. Pero nung nagdagdag ako ng isa to make it 2, so ilan yung nadagdagan? Sa total utility, di ba, pag 2 apples, nag-represent ko a while ago ng 15 utils. Nung nagdagdag ako ng isa to make it 2 from 10 utils, nagiging 15 utils. Ilan yung nadagdag sa number of utils ko nung dinagdagan ko siya ng isang unit of apple. So it is 5 utils. Yun yung sinasabi natin na marginal utility. Okay? Also, if we graph the total utility, yung slope nun is what we call the marginal utility. Now, for us to get or to calculate the marginal utility, so this is the formula. Mu is equivalent to change in total utility over change in quantity. Or shortcut na lang natin para na sa ganun, madali na lang ninyo matandaan yung formula is change of TU over change of Q. So, ang change of TU, it is TU sub 2 minus TU sub 1. Divide it by Q, amount of quantity after minus the amount before. Okay? Q sub 1 is Q sub 1. Okay? So, pag may change tayo, after minus before. Okay, divided by after minus before. So, so that you can compute or calculate marginal utility. To apply the concept, I have here a schedule of total utility and marginal utility. Ang given lang dyan is itong number of glasses of water consumed represented as Q and also the total utility or TU. Sa marginal utility, hindi yan siya given. You're going to compute pa based dito sa ating formula. So sa number of glasses of water consumed, I have different classes of water from 0 to 6. Bawat glass may nire-represent tayo na total utility. For example, kung wala ka talaga na consume or 0 yung number of glass, of course, wala ka talagang satisfaction dyan. So 0 util ka talaga dyan. Pero kapag nag-consume ka na ng 1 glass of water, so meron ka ng satisfaction which is 20 utils in this example. Kapag nagdagdag ka to make it 2, kung kung titingnan ninyo, nag-increase yung ating total utility. Okay? So on and so forth. Ngayon, sa ating marginal utility, as I've said, what would be the additional satisfaction once we able to add? Okay? We add Q, or here in the example, it's number of glasses of water consumed. So, based on our result, itong 20, galing yan siya doon sa ginamit natin na formula wherein ang TU sub 2 at saka TU sub 1 over Q sub 2 minus Q sub 1. Okay. Ang TU sub 2 natin is 20 minus TU sub 1 natin is 0 over Q sub 2 is 1 minus 0. 20 divided by 1 is 20. So meaning, nadagdagan ang satisfaction mo by 20 units once you add 1 glass of water from 0 to 1. How about this one? Itong 7. So remember the formula. So our TU is 27 minus 20 over 2 minus 1. So, ang result niyan is 7. So, ano napapansin ninyo? Kapag nagdagdag ka ng isang basong tubig to make it 2, ang nagdagdag sa level of satisfaction mo is 7 utils. Ganun siya. So on and so forth, ganito din sa iba. Kapag magdagdag ka ng isa to make it 3, nadagdagan ng 5 utils. Ganito din, nagdagdag ka ng isa to make it 4, nadagdagan ang level satisfaction mo by 3 utils. Dito sa portion, kapag magdagdag ka pa o nag-consume pa ka ng isang basong tubig, so mafe-feel mo na wala ka na talagang na, di, parang di ka na na-satisfy kasi parang useless na kapag magdagdag ka pa ng isa, ganun pa rin yung level of satisfaction which is 35. So wag ka nang mag-consume ng glass of water. Lalong-lalo na kapag magdagdag ka pa ng isa to make it 6, so dissatisfied ka na. Okay? Maganda sana kung magdagdag ka, of course, mag-increase ang satisfaction level mo. Pero if it is too much, you will experience na nawala na yung uhaw, 'di ba? Or nasawa ka na sa pag-consume. So therefore, ang satisfaction level mo bumababa ng pababa siya. Or yung additional satisfaction once you able to add an additional unit. So bumababa siya. So that's how you able to explain marginal utility. This is how you're able to illustrate graphically the total utility and marginal utility curve. So kung mapapansin ninyo na dito sa level from 0 to 4, ang total utility mo nag-increase pa. So kasi nag-accumulate man talaga siya from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4. So nag-accumulate yung satisfaction mo. Pero itong sinasabi na kapag magdagdag ka ng isa to make it 1, mataas pa ang iyong additional satisfaction. Kasi iba talaga kung first time, kung inom ka talaga ng tubig, lalo-lalo na kapag galing ka sa labas, pagod na pagod ka, gusto mo nang uminom ng isang basong tubig, so ano mafe-feel mo, ma-experience mo, 'di ba? Mataas ang satisfaction mo diyan. Pero kapag magdagdag ka pa ng isang baso to make it 2 glasses of water, so ang experience or yung uhaw factor na sinasabi dito is hindi na masyado kasi yung total or yung additional satisfaction mo doon, bumaba na siya. From 20 utils, nagiging 7 utils na lang siya. Until such time that you will experience a decreasing level of satisfaction once you able to add an additional unit. Okay? Pero between 4 and 5 glasses of water, you're able to reach this plateau. Ibig sabihin, you are now experience what we call a saturation point wherein your total utility is already maximized. So at 4, which is already maximized, So there's no need for you to add 1 glass of water for you to experience an increase of your utility. Hindi mo na talaga ma-experience yan. So, therefore, at 4, you already achieve the maximum satisfaction level. Kapag magdagdag ka pa, wala nang additional yun. Kasi nasatisfy ka na doon sa 4 glasses of water. How much more if you're going to add 1 glass of water from 5, gawin mong 6 glasses of water, so dissatisfied ka na. Hindi mo na ma-experience talaga yung satisfaction level na mataas. So, bumababa na siya talaga. Yung sinasabi natin na sawa factor can be explained with our law of diminishing marginal utility. So, from this concept, when we say diminishing, we're talking about decreasing. Ano yung nag-decrease? Nag-decrease yung marginal or your additional satisfaction or utility. Based on our illustration here, yung ating marginal utility, nag-decrease or nag-diminish siya. Because that's what we call the law of diminishing marginal utility. So the law states here that the more of the good that the consumer already has, keeping other factors constant. So, i-set aside muna natin yung mga other factors kung bakit kapag magdagdag ka ng good, ano ang mga other factors. Isantabi muna natin yan siya. So, kapag magdagdag ka daw ng number of units, so you will experience that your marginal utility will be decreasing, or the lower is the marginal utility provided because of the additional unit of that good. This means that more goods are consumed, the extra or additional satisfaction or marginal utility received decreased. So ganun lang. So sa ating example, kung iba talaga kung first time mo talaga siya, no? Kasi pag nagdagdag ka ng isa to make it one, or pag first time mo, isang glass of water, talagang madali mo talaga maubos yung tubig. Pero kapag magdagdag ka pa ng isa, so parang bumabagal ba yung pag inom mo ng tubig. How much more if you drink more? So the more you drink, the more that you are suffocated of drinking water. So, ganun na yung may experience mo dito. So, that explains the law of diminishing marginal utility. I have here 3 assumptions of rational preferences. Why we have these assumptions? Because the consumer behavior is still on theory, because it's not yet tested and proven that we have the same preferences of getting a particular good or a particular service. For example, let's say I have iPhone compared to your Samsung. So, kung ako ang mag uh, ma-represent ko between iPhone and Samsung in terms of level of satisfaction. So, kung prefer ko ang Samsung kaysa sa iPhone, meron namang iba sa atin na mas prefer ang iPhone kaysa sa Samsung. So, yan yung sinasabi ko na hindi pa napatutunayan na pareho tayo ng mga gusto at pangailangan based on how we able to satisfy a different good or a different service. So, mag-set tayo ng assumption na kung saan na pare-pareho tayo ng mga na-experience. For example, completeness. This is when the consumer does not have indifference. Ibig sabihin, pag indifferent ka, naguguluhan ka between two goods. Saan ba dito mas prefer mo? Ito ba siya or ito siya? So, dito sa completeness, the consumer does not have indifference between two goods. So sure siya na ang isa mas prefer niya over the other. Ganun siya. If faced, for example, with apples versus oranges, every consumer does have a preference for one good over the other. Example, for the apple and orange, apple, merong iba sa atin na apple or good A is prefer over orange or the good B. Merong iba sa atin na mas prefer niya ang orange compare sa apple. So, apple is less prefer over orange. So, yun yung completeness. Ito na sa baba, apple is equal to orange. Yun yung indifferent siya sa dalawa between apple and orange. So, hindi siya completeness. So, yung completeness na assumption, itong nasa dalawa, itong nasa itaas. Okay? Next, transitivity. This word is also what we call consistency. So you're consistent towards getting or consuming good. So this is based on defining a relationship between goods, such as if a consumer prefers, let's say we have three goods. If you prefer good A, it should be less yung good B na preferences mo because you prefer A rather than good B, and it should be that good B is preferred than good C. To make it consistent, it should be na mas prefer mo ang good A kaysa sa good C. In other words, consistent ka that you prefer good A rather than good B and good C. Sa ating example, dinagdagan natin ng guava. So to apply the concept, so apple, if gusto mo talaga ng apple, so kailangan mas prefer mo siya compared to orange. Si orange, mas prefer mo siya compared kay guava to make it consistent that you like apple. So, apple should prefer than guava. That's transitivity. Next, non-citation. What is this? This states that more of a good is always better. So, madaling sabi, the more the better. The more you consume, the better that your satisfaction will increase. Because sino ba naman sa atin na ayaw na ng marami tayong nabibilhin, di ba? So the more that we're going to buy, the better. Kasi nag-increase, na-satisfy ka doon kasi bumili ka ng marami. So that's what we call non-satiation. But as long as na hindi maapektuhan ang ability mo for you to utilize other goods. So kung bibili ka nito ng marami, so hindi maapektuhan yung ibang goods or services na gusto mong bilhin pa. Okay? So, wala kang isa-sacrifice na other goods or services kapag ginawa mo na itong produkto na isa, marami ang bibilhin mo para masatisfy ka. That's what we call non-satiation. So, sa ating example, consumer preferred 6 apples and 2 oranges. Compared to kung bibili ka ng 4 apples and 1 orange. So, murag tinapok siya ba? So, kung meron tinapok, for example, 6 apples and 2 oranges, sa kabila naman 4 apples and 1 orange. So, mas prefer mo ito kaysa sa ito because of the concept na prefer mo ang marami kaysa sa ito. Okay, ganun siya. Merong iba na prefer nila ng marami kasi makatipid sila. Let's say kung cheaper ang isang produkto, mas advantage sa part mo na bumili ka ng marami kaysa sa patingi-tingi lang. Okay? So that's what we call non-satiation. Let's move on to the indifference curve. Alam ba ninyo na ating level of satisfaction can be represented graphically? So that's the beauty of mathematics, that once we able to experience, so may counterpart siya, through graphs, through equations. So that's economics is all about. So indifference curve shows the different combinations of good X and good Y which yield the same level of utility. So ano ito yung sinasabi na different combinations? So for instance, ito yung ating indifference curve. So within this indifference curve, we have different combinations. Yan. Pwede dyan, dito, or extreme dito. So, kung dito tayo na combination 1, so you buy more Y, okay, rather than to buy X. Okay, so let's say 6 dito, 6 units of good Y. Dito is 4. So, in this combination, the bundle of goods you have are 6 units of Y and 4 units of X. Kung dito naman, let's say, for example, combination 2, dito, let's say you have 3 units of Y, 8 units of X. Okay? So if we have two combinations which yield the same level of utility or satisfaction. So pareho lang yung satisfaction mo dito, whether kung bibili ka ng ganitong combinations, 6 units of Y, X units of X, same ang level of satisfaction mo when you consume 3 units of Y, 8 units of X. So, along this indifference curve, mga combinations na meron dyan, we have the same level of utility. Paano magkakaroon na mag vary ang ating indifference curve? Mag-vary lang ating difference curve if, for example, kunyari, dito yung combination 1, dito yung combination 2. So, dito sa combination 1, the more Y and X ang i-consume mo compare kung dito ka sa combination number 2 that you consume less Y and X. So if you compare the two combinations, which among these two is your higher level of satisfaction? So dito talaga sa combination number 1. So sa madaling sabi, the more you're able to consume different bundles of goods, the more is the possibility that your level of satisfaction will increase. Ganun na mangyayari. Okay? On a particular indifference curve that is given in figure 1, any combination of good X and good Y that lies on that particular indifference curve will result to the same level of utility. That's what I've said to you a while ago. And also in the figure 1, may na-notice kayo na shift of our indifference curve. So if the indifference curve will shift to the right, that means what? There is an increase in utility on the consumption of good X and good Y. So the more you consume different bundles of good X and good Y, you experience a higher level of satisfaction. Compared to this one, if mag-shift yung ating utility or your indifference curve from U sub 1 to U sub 2, that means that nag-decrease yung inyong level of satisfaction of getting or consuming goods or services. The nearer to the origin represents that your satisfaction level becomes lower and lower. Kasi kapag if you reach papunta doon sa zero, so malapit ka na sa pagkonsumo ng goods and services, papunta na siya sa zero, approaches to zero, so yung level of satisfaction mo bumababa ng pababa. But if if it is farther from the origin, it represents higher level of satisfaction. So that's the property of our indifference curve. Okay. May na-observe tayo sa ating indifference curve na ganito ang kanyang itsura. Diba? So ganito ang kanyang itsura. So yan, ganyan itsura. So we're going to enumerate the 3 characteristics. 1, it is negatively sloped. 2, convex to the origin. And number 3, do not intersect. So isa-isahin natin ito sila. Bakit negatively slope? Yung ating indifference curve. Ang slope ng ating indifference curve is what we call the marginal rate of substitution, or in short, MRS of X for Y. Okay. So what is this MRS? MRS is the amount of good Y that the consumer is willing to give up in exchange for good X and still lies on the same indifference curve. So ano daw yon? Ang MRS natin o itong slope natin, you need to give up or to sacrifice number of units of good Y para para magdagdag ka ng amount of getting good X. Pag ginawa mo yung ganun na substitution, or should I say transformation, so wala pa ring pagbabago sa iyong level of satisfaction kasi you still lies on the same indifference curve. Let's say for example, okay, so we have 2 MRS. Okay. Sa first MRS natin, so sa first, ito pa yung amount of good Y and the amount of X mo. Tama? Kung may balak ka na increase yung unit of X mo, so anong gagawin mo? Para ma-maintain mo pa rin yung level of satisfaction mo. So anong gagawin mo? So you're going to what? To reduce the amount of getting Y. So you need to sacrifice good Y in exchange for good X. So that is how you're going to explain the marginal rate of substitution, or MRS. Along the way, kapag if you decide to increase more of getting good X, you will notice that also you're going to sacrifice more good Y. And your marginal rate of substitution will reduce. So, pakonti ng pakonti ng ang ating marginal rate of substitution. So, as I've said, marginal rate of substitution is the slope of the indifference curve. So, for us to get the MRS, you need to follow this formula, which is change of y over change of x. To apply this concept, let's say, for example, suppose that there are two goods that Diana is indifferent, spaghetti and macaroni. Spaghetti represented as good X and macaroni represented as good Y. Before she bought spaghetti, she bought spaghetti 3 servings per week, while 5 servings per week for macaroni. Due to changes of her preferences, she bought 6 servings per week for spaghetti, while 2 servings per week for macaroni. So, nakita ninyo yung difference. Kapag nag-change yung preferences niya, ang mangyari sa kanyang spaghetti or good X, nag-increase from 3 servings, nagiging 6 servings siya per week. Pero, ang nangyari sa preferences mo sa macaroni, bumaba. Kanina, it is 5 servings per week. Ngayon, nagiging 2 servings per week na lang. So what will happen to our MRS? So this is the formula. So you're going to use this one. So yung change of y will become y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by yung change of x mo, it is x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Yung y sub 1 mo is yung nangyari dati. Nangyari sa macaroni. Ano nangyari sa macaroni mo kapag bumili ka? Ang y sub 2, dahil nag-change ang preferences mo, so nagbago. So ito yung after change na nangyari sa good y mo or itong macaroni. So for you to compute, pabaliktad siya. After minus before. So we have 2 kasi nagbago na yung ating preferences na macaroni, you're going to subtract it to 5, which is yung kanina. Okay? Sa baba, ang preferences mo ng spaghetti from 3 nagiging 6. So, since x sub 2 minus x sub 1 man siya, so therefore, it is 6 minus 3. To simplify, 2 minus 5, it is negative 3 over 6 minus 3. It will make 3. So, negative 3 divided by 3, negative 1. As I've said, the property of our indifference curve is negatively slope. So, what is the meaning of a negative 1? Negative 1 means that Diana is willing to give up 1 serving per week for macaroni in exchange for spaghetti, without changing or affecting her level of satisfaction of consuming both spaghetti and macaroni. So sa madaling sabi, mag-give up si Diana ng isang serving na macaroni per week in exchange for spaghetti. So that's how you're going to interpret the MRS. So let's have an exercise. Let's say our MRS is negative 5. What does it mean? So if you're going to apply this example, negative 5 means that itong si Diana, i-give up niya ang kanyang macaroni by 5 servings per week in exchange for spaghetti. So ganun, that's how you're going to interpret the marginal rate of substitution. So to illustrate, based on this example, So, ito yung nangyari. So, sa macaroni ninyo, kanina nagiging 5, from 5 nagiging 2. While itong ating spaghetti, kanina 3 nagiging 6. So, we have 2 combinations. This one and ito. So, i-compute mo itong dito na distance. Because we are computing the slope, the distance between the 2 combinations. So, apply the formula of the MRS. So, you have this result, -1. Okay? The second property or the second characteristic of our indifference curve is that it is convex to the origin. Okay? Mapapansin nyo, tingnan niyo mabuti. Ang curve, mag-curve yung ating indifference curve towards origin. Nakapointed siya sa point of origin. Hindi siya nakaganito. Hindi nakaganyan. Hindi nakaganyan. Hindi siya nakaganyan. So, it is convex towards the origin yung curve ng ating difference curve. Why? Bakit convex to the origin? Because our MRS is diminishing. So, kung mag-compute tayo ng MRS, okay, MRS dito, MRS dito, dito. So, manotice ninyo na yung rate for our MRS, paliit ng paliit siya as we increase our unit of X while to reduce our amount of Y. So, naga-diminish yung ating MRS. So, sa third property ng ating indifference curve is that if we have 2 or more indifference curve, they should not intersect with each other. Okay? Bakit hindi pwede mag-intersect? So, balikan natin yung figure number 2. Ito. So, in figure number 2, you have noticed that we have the intersection of our indifference curve. Bakit hindi pwede na mag-intersect itong dalawa? So, if you notice that hindi natin nakikita kung sino sa dalawa dito ang higher level of satisfaction, sino ang lower level of satisfaction. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ang U sub 1 is the high level of satisfaction dito. Pero pagdating dito, U sub 1 pa rin, di ba ito? So, lower level of satisfaction siya. Hindi din pwede rin na lower level of satisfaction ang U sub 2 kasi dito na area or this portion, high level of satisfaction siya. So, ibig sabihin, it violates the transitivity assumption. Kasi kapag 'di ba pag transitivity, consistent ka sa level of satisfaction, meaning consistent ka na ito ang highest mo, ito yung lowest level of satisfaction mo. Pero pagdating dito sa figure number 2, hindi ka consistent sa level of satisfaction mo. Another thing na hindi dapat mag-intersect ang ating indifference curve is that ito, may example ako na 3 combinations. Combinations A, B, and C. So, U sub 1, ang combination B, ang level of satisfaction niya is the same with C. Tama? Bakit man the same? Kasi within man sila sa iisang indifference curve. So, 'di ba, pag within pa rin siya sa indifference curve, it shows that we have the same level of utility or satisfaction. Okay? Sa new sub 2 natin, in this indifference curve, it shows that combination A is equal to combination C. Bakit? Because itong si A at saka C, the same pa rin, the same man ang kanilang difference curve. So kung titingnan natin ito, so dapat ang ating combination B is equal to combination C. Tama? Tama? Pero if we try to look at this graphically, a B is equals to A. Okay? So kung titingnan natin dito between B and A, hindi sila pareho ng kanilang level of satisfaction because at B, mataas sa kanyang level of satisfaction compared to at A. So, hindi sila equal. So, hindi ito ma-achieve or ma-attain. Kasi when in this portion, it shows that B is greater than A, which is not consistent sa kanilang level of satisfaction. So, dapat hindi pwede na mag-intersect yung ating indifference curve. So, we have special cases of indifference curve na kung saan yung, yung gipresent ko kanina na three characteristics, one of these, ma-violate niya. It's either yung ating curve is a straight line or maging L-shape siya or yung tatlo, one of the three doon, hindi niya masunod. So may mga ganoon tayo ng mga special cases sa ating indifference curve. So number one of the special case is the perfect substitutes. Ano nga itong substitute? So kailangan if you have one good, so you need to replace it to another good kapag hindi ito siya available. Si good A, if hindi siya available, meron siyang replacement which is good B. Okay? So yun yung dapat ang perfect substitute. Dapat si good A, wala nang iba pang replacement aside from B. Kung si B lang talaga ang pwedeng i-replace sa A, yun yung perfect substitute. Okay? So, two goods are possibly to use interchangeably so that a consumer is indifferent between them. Of course, kay pareho man sila ng satisfaction. So, kung wala si A, so meron kang replacement na same po ang satisfaction mo sa A. So, kung si B ang pinaka the best na satisfaction or siya talaga ang unique na i-substitute mo kay A, so therefore, they have the same satisfaction level. So, good B is the unique substitute for good A. So, ganun siya. This causes that our indifference curves to be straight line. For example, I have two substitutes, nickels and dimes. Pag walang nickel, ibig sabihin, you can produce dimes. Alam niyo kung ano ang dimes? Ang dimes are what we call coins. Pera, di ba? Pera yan siya. So, kung wala kang nickels, gamitin mo ang dimes para makaproduce ka ng nickels. Or kung wala kang coins, pwedeng gamitin ang nickels. Okay. So, let's say for example, if we have 6 units of nickels, you can produce 3 dimes. So, para siyang ratio, 6:3. Na. If we have 4 units of nickels, you need to produce 2 times. And if you're going to produce 2 nickels, you need to also produce 1 unit of 9. So, nakita ninyo na parallel yung ating difference curve. Tama? So, kapag parallel siya, that means perfect substitute itong ating nickels and dimes. So, the MRS of these three indifference curves here is fixed. Kung imo na siyang i-compute or if you're going to compute the MRS, the result is negative 2. Okay? Why? So, kung the same ang kanilang MRS, that means also na perfect substitutes ang dalawang goods natin. So, bakit daw negative 2? Diba? Change of y. If we have 6 and 3. So, y sub 2 natin is 0. Y sub 1 natin is 6 over 3 minus 0. So, negative 6 divided by 3. So, we have negative 2. The same with here sa I sub 2 na indifference curve. So, 0 minus 4 divided by 2 minus 0. So, we have negative 2 also. And the same also in our I sub 1, negative 2. So, constant or pareho ang kanilang MRS. How about perfect complements? Ano ang complement? Complement should itong goods natin mag-partner. Okay? So, kapag bibili ka ng isa, huwag mong kalimutan na bumili nito or another product para dito sa isang product. For example, kape at asukal. Wag wag mo kalimutan na bumili ng asukal kapag bibili ka ng kape. Ganun ang ginamin natin sa complement. Pero kapag perfect complements, ibig sabihin kapag bibili ka ng kape, si asukal lang talaga ang unique na pwede mong i-complement kay kape. Hindi na pwede si honey, hindi na pwede yung other forms of sugar na ipang-complement mo sa kape. Si asukal lang. So, in this case, pag perfect complements tayo, it should be that these two goods will go together so that a consumer needs them to need them both to have any use of them. And our indifference curves will be L-shaped. Let's say we have left shoes and right shoes. So it's obvious na perfect complement sila. So kapag bibili ka ng left shoes, don't forget to buy right shoes. But in reality, kapag bibili ka ng sapatos, so pares naman talaga yun siya agad. So there's no need for you to think to buy left shoe and to buy another for the right shoes. So, perfect complement ang dalawa, no? So, bakit nagiging L-shape yung ating indifference curve? Let's say, if I want to buy left shoes, which is 5 units, of course, your right shoes is also 5 units. Okay? Kung pagpalagay natin, bibili ka ng 7 left shoes. So, ano sa tingin mo um, ano sa tingin mo kapag bibili ka ng right shoes? it should be 7 right shoes, diba? Pero let's say, kung bibili ka ng 5 right shoes, tapos bumili ka ng 7 left shoes, so of course, ang magamit mo sa left shoes is 5. Hindi pwede 7 kasi 5 right shoes man ang meron ka. So, you should use 5 left shoes lang. Hindi ka na pwede magdagdag. So, the more you buy left shoes, tapos 5 right shoes ka lang, so of course, ang magamit mo lang is only 5 pairs of shoes. Okay? Ganon din dito sa horizontal line ng ating difference curve na kapag bibili ka ng more than 5 right shoes and 5 left shoes, so ang magamit mo lang is only 5 pairs of shoes. Kaya pa straight line. Ganyan. So that's the reason why we have an L-shaped indifference curve. So we cannot identify our MRS here if we have an L-shaped indifference curve. Okay? So next meeting, I'm going to discuss about the budget line.